Hi, and welcome to Your Future, Your Finances. We have another great segment for you today. I'm your host, Brian Kuhn. We're talking about the writing industry, publishing your own book, perhaps. We're speaking with Chris Beakey, who is the author of Fatal Option, a recently released fiction book. So we'll talk about the writing industry as well as the theme of this, which actually, as I understand, had you the opportunity to work in the law enforcement field and interview some of them for the book.
Yep.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and the book.
So I have a little bit of a split personality. I've got a day job here in Washington area where I work in public policy communications. And I'm essentially a ghostwriter for folks who are lobbying for policies that improve the lives of at-risk kids. So I do that about 8 or 9 hours a day. And then I have this other thing I do. I get up every morning at 5 o'clock and I spend about 2 hours writing novels and short stories. I very excited about this book and how successful I think it's going to be, and sort of it's my second novel, kind of my breakthrough novel. But I think one of the things people don't always understand is that it didn't just happen overnight. I've actually been at this for about 25 years, getting up every morning and doing this before going off to the office and so forth. And so now I'm, a few days away from publication, anxious to see what happens. But I've learned a lot about the industry, kind of hard-earned knowledge, and always happy to share what I've learned with the hope that it'll be helpful to someone else.
Yeah, and it seems like a very interesting story. I was taking a look at it, and that writing industry aspect. There's people who may be watching who are getting to their retirement date, and this is going to be their second career, or they get on their bucket list. So. Like step one of writing a book, what would you say that is, and go from there?
Well, I meet a lot of people my age, younger, even older, and they come up to me and they say, God, I've always wanted to write a book, or someday I want to write a book, or my least favorite, which is that I have a great idea for a book, maybe you can write it. So a lot of people want to do this, and it is possible to you retire from your job at 60, 61. It is certainly possible to decide to write a book, and you go and you write it, and it does really well, and you're a success story. I'd say probably 99% of the time, it doesn't work that way. It's like, you don't just show up and try out for the NBA one day, right? It's your whole life. And I think that this might sound kind of silly, but the first step toward having a career or even a sideline to writing a book is really writing as much as you can every single day. I know a lot of people in my field who have their day job. They may work as a journalist, as a writer, but if they're really serious about fiction or even nonfiction, if they're really serious about their own work, it's something they're doing all the time. One piece of advice I have for people is, particularly people in the Washington area who are really stressed, working really hard, got kids, families and so forth, is to find the time of day when you're most creative, when your mind is in the best possible place, and try, if you can, to carve out that time for yourself every single day. For me, I'm a morning person. I get up, I've got a lot of energy. Right when I wake up, my mind's not cluttered from the drama of the day, and I can sit down and just start writing. I've got friends who can't put a word on the screen until 8 o'clock at night. But the most important thing is, if you really want to do this, you kind of have to do it. This is the second novel that I've had published. I've actually written 5.
Wow.
So I wrote 3 before I sold the first one. And I would say that it was the writing that taught me how to do it, the writing itself. I've certainly, I've had some good teachers, some instructors, but most of what I learned actually came from the doing.
Now, you said the term sold, so sold to a publisher for distribution, so to speak. And in preparation for this talk, you and I were talking about there's the traditional form of publishing, and then more of the the current trend, if
Right.
you will. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the differences between those.
Sure. So I'll talk first about the traditional route, which is what I did, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of epic. Like if you look at your life as like this epic adventure. So typically what happens is you have to have a story or a novel, a nonfiction project that is very, very marketable.
You
Right?
have to almost like build the marketing plan for them.
Yeah, and so I write thrillers. Fortunately, a lot of people read thrillers, so that's one step in my favor. Step back is that a lot of people write thrillers, so there's a lot of competition. First, you've got to write a great book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Then you almost have to land an agent to represent your book. I would say, in my own experience and with so many of the people I know, landing an agent is actually even tougher than getting your book published. And one of the reasons for that is that agents, if it's a legitimate agent, you don't pay them. So the only way they're going to represent you is if they've got a pretty good sense that they can actually sell the book. So, my last agent, I'm sure he rejected probably 95% of the projects that were sent his way. So, I'll tell you about my first experience, my first book. So I land an agent in 2004. It takes him a year to sell the book, 2005. From there, small advance, small publisher, but legitimate deal, good deal, hardcover. Then you've got about a year from that point until publication. Typical publishing deal, very small advance, unless you're, Brad Pitt or something, and you wrote a book about, your life. And so small advance, you wait a year for it to be published. It's published. You've got to sell a certain number of copies to earn back your advance. Once you do that point, then you actually start getting some money. Most people I know don't do this for the money because there's not a lot of money in it, unless you're a brand name author. But that's kind of the way that I went about it, and that's the choice I made. The other route.
Let's take a break. We'll cover the other route on the other end.
Sounds good.
You're watching Your Future, Your Finances. We're speaking with Chris Beakey, author of Fatal Option and writing veteran here in the D.C. area. We'll be right back.